Well, I don't know that the Republicans are going to necessarily fare that badly. I mean, they could very well benefit from this. If Romanoff and Bennett are beating each other up, which I think is going to have to be the case, you could see someone like Norton emerging, but I don't know. It's going to be tough because Bennett doesn't have much of a record. So there's a few things that Romanoff can beat him up on, but I don't know that that Bennett's going to look further to the left than Romanoff will.
Although Bennett's has always had that, John Hickenlooper aura of being business friendly. Not saying he is business friendly, but he's had that impression.
Well,
he's worked with Anschutz.
He turned around failing businesses, and if you look at all the people who are running for office in that race, I mean, he's probably the one with the most business experience. If you look at Michael Bennett, he has more business experience, I believe, than anybody in that race. I'm trying to remember all of maybe Cleve Tidwell, who's definitely on the lower rung of name ID. But I mean, this guy has worked for business. He's not the career, well, I had an appointment here and I did this and I've done that.
He's made his money, he's comfortable, he can do it. All right, let's switch sides of the fence, because this has been something where Republicans are like, who's running? And many Republicans have been dismayed that Scott McInnes, who would seem a natural for that position to run for Senate, a former congressman, the guy who got bumped out of running for Senate back when Ben Nighthorse Campbell switched parties. I'm trying to remember the year. McInnes was all set to run for Senate, and the party said, no, we have to encourage people who switch to our party, like Ben Nighthorse Campbell, that we're not going to challenge him. And we didn't challenge him. So he did what Republicans asked him to do. I thought that McInnes would want this seat. I've talked to him and he said, I don't want anything to do with D.C. I'm home now and I'm going to stay. So it was wide open. What happened on the Republican side of this?
Well, I wish I had the answers to that, because it's a mystery to me too. It seems as if, I mean, you look at the people that they have in their fold, and I mean, right now, who is the only candidate with name-wide recognition that they've got, statewide name recognition that they've got running for Senate?
Jane Norton.
It's Norton.
Norton, yes and no.
Yes and no, because she was light gov.
Right. Before Norton came in, there was an interesting bunch of kind of long shot candidates coming in. You had Ryan Frazier, who is an Aurora City councilman. To go from a councilman to become a United States Senator is a huge jump, until you realize that a school superintendent became a United States Senator.
From the RTD board to having your own show.
Exactly. It rarely happens.
Or works.
Then you've got Ken Buck, who is kind of carrying the conservative water, the anti-immigration, limited government Clive Tidwell, who's a good guy, a businessman, but I don't think anybody knows who he is. And who else was looking at that?
Luke. I'm sorry, I can never say his last name. He's the Crested Butte attorney. Right. And Tom Weems is thinking.
And Tom Weems is seriously considering running.
Right, he's filed the papers. So yeah, but actually that's what kind of made it interesting, because it really was this grassroots, like anybody. Buck won in the fundraising, and he probably would win in the name ID, but it was kind of like, and then in comes Jane Norton, and there's a big foot there with that.
This seat has got to be one of the #1 national seats, period, for the Republican Party nationally.
Oh, they'll spend $5 trillion, because if you look at it, it's a seat they could possibly win.
It is. The anger that I'm sensing from a lot of people on the grassroots level was Jane Norton. Well, wait a second. Jane Norton never called me, and the sense that the Republican, not the National Committee, but the Senatorial Steering Committee, seemed to grab her domain names on the website, sense that there was a blessing from above, and a lot of people on the grassroots in the party said, wait a second, D.C. doesn't decide who's our senator and who runs for our party, we do. Right.
Yeah, there's obviously resentment over that, and you sort of wonder if, that's going to hurt her on fundraising, but I don't know. I mean, she had, she had Owen standing next to her this morning, and she came off really well in her speech, said a lot of things that I think are really going to motivate people in her party. And, she's a very well presentable candidate. I mean, she's an attractive lady, very well put together, articulate, and, I think that she could really do well in a
She
Republican
really has
primary.
amazing, okay, so you talk about, does she known politically, but she's known actually geographically. I mean, she grew up in Grand Junction. They lived in Greeley. They lived in Greenwood Village now, although I laugh because they always put Inglewood. Where's Dick Wadhams when you need him? Boulder, El Dorado Springs. So she knows so many people around the state. Now, you hear people complain about the Ref C factor, about her votes are unknown, but that's actually a blessing, I think, when you run.
Well, isn't that a blessing then for Michael Bennet as well? I mean,
no, because he does have votes. I mean, he's going to have a health care vote. He's talking about health care. It's a lot tougher to say I believe in the public option than it is to say this health care bill is terrible and this isn't the answer to go. That's the easy way. It's hard to say, hey, we got to fix health care.
But let's talk a little bit about the Owens factor. And a lot of people on the grassroots in the Republican Party remember when Owens, years back, endorsed Bob Schaefer and then pulled that and gave it to Pete Coors. Pete Coors lost. Remember that Bob Beaupre won over Mark Holtzman. Bob Beaupre lost in big fashion. And there's some sense that maybe this Owens machine isn't the right machine to be picking the next candidate. At least that's what Tom Tancredo seemed to say in the Denver Post the other day.
But did the Owens machine pick Bob Beaupre?
I think there was a stamp of approval there.
Okay.
Wouldn't you agree?
Well, but I mean, if she's got the McCain folks behind her in some fashion, you got to think that's really going to help. I mean, they're going to be pulling strings to, send money her way. And
true, but in a primary, the primaries killed Republicans last year. It killed Bob Beaupre. I would say that it hurt Pete Coors with Bob Schaefer. Those primaries ripped parties apart.
What you had there is you had primaries where the Democrats, the Ken Sells or Mike Miles primary. So much as I love the fact that Mike Miles dared to get in before there was even an open race, Selzer crushed him in all but one county, I believe. And so that, it almost like there wasn't a primary. And then Ritter went alone. And I think the difference is when you had those other races, you had Republicans clawing each other apart, but you didn't necessarily have Democrats doing that. I mean, in this case, you've got ugliness on both sides. And except for, if you go back to like 96, for example, 98, I thought that the other Norton, Gail Norton, did a much better job of kissing and making up. Where the lingering resentment, Gene Nickel, who came up with the lawyer lobbyist tag on Strickland, killed him for 2 straight election cycles. I always thought Republicans did a better job of saying, this stinks, but I'm going to pull the lever. Now, I do not believe it happened
in Bob Beaupre's case.
Well,
I think the animosity between the Beaupre camp and the Holtzman camp was so ugly that it really
I think
ruined
the animosity in #04 was far greater over what happened with Schaefer. And I think those people said, like I talked to a number of people said, I'm not going to vote for a Democrat, but I'll, Clyde Harkin, the American Constitution Party candidate got, a number of votes then. It's just how effective you are in kissing and making up. I always say the reason Bob Beaupre won in 2002 when he ran for Congress is that it didn't seem like Dave Thomas went out and worked for Mike Feely the way Rick O'Donnell went out and worked for Bob Beaupre. 60 votes later.
That's a great point. And also, Kay Norton's got a great name recognition. Partly that she doesn't deserve, Jay Norton, because of that great last name. You've got Ed Norton,
Trixie Norton.
Trixie Norton. You've got Tom Norton. You've got Gail Norton. Nortons are pretty well known here, and even if we don't know who she is and she doesn't have a voting record, I think a lot of voters are going to say, I feel comfortable with that name, and I don't know why.